Okay, so CPQ, quick agenda. The reason why we did this from a business standpoint, some high-level flow of how the application works with all the different records involved. Just a brief overview of the architecture also behind it on how we map the different structures. I think from a business standpoint, one of the main objective is really about reducing the number of finished goods and the maintenance of all those finished goods through BOMs and BOM revision and maintaining hundreds, if not thousands, of different records when essentially they are almost not necessarily the same, but they are just a different set of composition of how you produce that finished good that can be handled via BOM or via CPQ, which is what this application is trying to solve. At the same time, we also leverage all the components that are going to be used to construct the assembly or the finished good and leverage the price related to each of those components to give a final selling price on the finished goods. So depending on the configuration, it will be a little bit more expensive, less expensive, depending on the different set of configurations. I think the third big objective is about not necessarily just training, but how fast can we get, for example, new finished goods on the market without having to train an entire, sales team. If we just put the rules in place, then the application will just, piggyback on those rules, and you can get up to speed much faster with this kind of application. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Okay, so at the highest level, the idea is okay, well, you have your sales order on which you want to get a work order against in the context of, build to order. But the idea being, do you want to have a BOM for each of those assemblies or
Mhm.
use the CPQ engine that will, you'll launch against an order, and on each different finished good, you can go through a selection of questions and answer to get a final results of a work order with a BOM that the BOM doesn't live anywhere in NetSuite. It's really just a BOM that we generated based on all the inputs.
Like what you're saying is you're developing like a custom BOM for this particular request that
Correct?
has certain attributes that you're just trying to say, I don't have a pre-existing BOM that's going to make everything going to be a custom BOM.
Exactly. You don't need to maintain any BOM. The concept of BOM really lives in the CPQ engine.
Gotcha.
And here, the architecture of the CPQ itself. Essentially, it's really two different modules that together form the CPQ application. But on one side, we have all of the architecture of the CPQ for layering and what I call attributes and options and validation. So essentially, what it means is as you go along the way, when you set up finished good, you go through a specific path of question that just filters a list of possible scenarios. So you just keep going down the list. And the way we organized it, it was around a layering mechanism to help everyone really understand where they are in the path, in the sequence. For example, we always start at the base layer, right? So it's easy to imagine. And then you go through the next layer, and each layer could really be a set of questions which are essentially an attribute. Attribute being what desk color do you want? Well, the attribute is the desk color, and then the options are all the possible colors. So you want to have red, blue, and so forth and so forth. And the layer itself could be, well, maybe the countertops of the desk, right? It could be many, the way you think about that layer that contains the desk color and so forth and so forth. Okay, so that's really how the layer mechanism work with the attributes and the option. And the last one, the validation, is the one that will really help answers to the users. So depending on the rules that we put in place, maybe the red option is not available with this desk size, but only the blue one is. So that will be managed by the validation record. So the option is always the same record across the spectrum. It's just how do you tie it to an attribute and then the validation to run on that attribute and that option.
Let me ask you, is the validation, is it happening as the options are being selected or after the options are being selected? In other words, maybe if I choose some option at some space, will that affect other options later down in a validation rule?
Yes, as you're presented with a question, the option list has already been filtered based on the previous answer that you provided. That's why the base layer is important because it already contains some kind of answer. So when you get ready to the first question, you
Mm,
already know the previous answer coming from the base, and thus we can filter automatically the list of
I
options
see.
based on what you got, and then that
Right.
answer you'll answer will then also impact the next one and the next one and the next one. So we
Right.
kind of create a path
I see. I
to
see.
the user.
And the validation is always like upstream. Everything is open to you until you start answering questions, and then that narrows the future results
Exactly.
or
Yes.
future options. Okay, got it. All
Mhm.
right.
And at the end of the day, what happens is all those attributes and options that have been selected get stored on what we call a response. And that response will just help us build the work order or allow the user, for example, to come back to a CPQ they already went through
Right.
to just make minor changes and then resubmit again. So it's just always stored in a response record to update the work order at the end of the day, which gets the component.
Kind of like a temporary record to hold your answers as you're going through this. So
Correct.
you might not finish in one setting or sitting. You could come back to it. You could revise it. You could just kind of play with this a little bit.
Exactly. And really, the last concept about the architecture is okay, you build all the questions and all the attributes and all the options. That's all on one side of the story. On the other side of the story, you have the item database. So if I answer red, well, what is red? It needs, at the end of the day, you want to generate a work order. So red needs to tie to a component. And you might have different type of red because you could have a small desk, a medium desk, a large desk. They're all red because you also have the blue option. There's the idea of tagging your inventory database with the option to just explain to the system what this component is all about instead of
Mm.
just using a text field, for example. You need to format it so the system can read it. But that's kind of at the end of this journey, that's something we really need to achieve in order for the system to be able to look up components as it
Mm.
build the work order.
So any given attribute or any given option that you've chosen then leads to some one or multiple even components or SKUs or things, right? It knows, oh, basically, if you choose this attribute, you're going to have to use all of these SKUs for this part, right?
Exactly.
As opposed
You
to
could
others.
have one component return, you could have many, and there's also the quantity factor. So maybe
Right,
you need 4 screws with the small desk, but you need 6 screws with a bigger desk. So
right.
how do you input that data? It's all at the inventory database level.
So the item database is decorated so that it syncs into this question, these options in the questionnaire.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. And
Okay.
everything is by layer. So that's why, again, the concept of layer is important because even at the inventory database level, you'll be able to explain, well, this component participates in this layer, and those are the attributes that explain what this item is.
So the layer to you means a category of things. Like if I think about like maybe in your example, a table, maybe I have a desk and there's a main part of the desk. Maybe there's a return part of the desk or the shelves on top of the desk. So all of those to you would be layers. Is that right? Is that how you would say? Or
Yeah,
different categories
yeah,
of the part of
just
a
yeah, and anything that could help the user really understand where they are in the flow, especially when you get to multi-layer BOM, like of I don't know, 12 layers. Well, most of the time those layers are tied to, I don't know, department or whatnot, right? So you can think of them as a category
I
to
see.
your point of of component.
You might start it's like, well, here are all the kinds of furniture that we have. Just give me, okay, here's a dining set, here's a living room set, here's a desk set. So you just go, what that could be one layer of, and then once you get to the next pieces, okay, give me all of the wood manufactured pieces, or give me the upholstery. So you have different parts of this so that you could think through all of these things, right?
Correct.
I
Yep.
see.
And
Okay.
that will make a lot of sense in the example we'll go through because it's
Okay.
very clear what this client has been doing. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So now back to this, a very simple order with many assemblies on the lines. I have one ready for us today. Here's a sales order with many different finished goods really that have
Mhm.
no defined BOM at all. They
Mhm.
are just, finished goods. Now what we do is we essentially launch the CPQ against this order. So it looks like this when you just open it, right? So I return, okay, what are all the finished good participating in CPQ? Well, in this case, they're all participating in CPQ. I can launch the first one, and now the system will automatically understand the base layer. So let's just look at the base layer for now. Base layer for this finished good means it has 3 attributes,
Mhm.
and these attributes are already pre-filled in the finished good. So when you
I
launch it,
see.
you already know what this is, right?
Right. So these are answers based off of just the line, the item that was inserted into. So the first question is answered for you because that's what someone put in there, right? I want this fixture, I want this number of pendants, and I got it mounted. So this is like the basic minimum just for even getting this process going. Someone needs to tell you, okay,
Yes.
this,
And another way to put it would be if you don't have BOM and you only think about finished goods, how, as a business, you want to segregate all the type of finished goods that you have. This business decided to go with 3 different attributes as a starting point. It
I
could be
see.
1, it could be 10, doesn't matter.
Right.
You just
Right.
need a starting point, right?
So in this case, they felt like the best use is 3 of these things. So people would indicate. So and really, it's just kind of like this option is really, I would imagine, this series, which like a series number for this item, and then
That,
the
mhm,
mounting category, and then the number of pendants is just okay. Just tell me how many, right? You want. So this is
correct.
the user just selects. I want this number 5, 10, 100 pendants, whatever. Very easy, very understandable.
And these feed into now the first attribute that you need to answer, which is, okay, well, what's the suspension type for this?
Mhm.
And because this client is in the fixture business, so what's the suspension type that is linked with with that finished good? Well, these are the 4 available option type suspension type for this one. Doesn't
Right.
mean that I only have 4. I have a lot more than 4. It's just that this specific one can only fit with those
With
4, and
these.
this is where
Right.
these are all option based
Yeah.
on this, right? So they are all option to be picked
Based on the
against an
first.
attribute.
Right.
Exactly, but not all are returned because it's based on the validation, and the
Right. Right.
validation essentially is trying to say, well, okay, the previous attributes were
Right.
these, and thus only those 4 are now available to me. So I can pick, let's say, copper. And when we talk about layer, well, now suspension option as a whole is in their mind the first layer they would go through.
Yeah.
And as I answer a question or an attribute, and I provide it with an option, the
Oh,
system now runs a check and returns to me what is the next necessary attribute to answer. In this
right.
case, now we are jumping to another attribute here.
Mhm.
Because I only have one possible option, we automatically default it, and thus here now I have to pick the finish for this
Right.
fixture.
Okay.
So I can pick black, and then we just run the validation. Boom! I jump to the next one, and here's a new layer that just got introduced. It's the electrical option. So it's starting to make sense, right?
I see.
Suspension being a layer, and then another layer is everything related to
Right.
electrical. So what's the
Right.
voltage for that one? It validates, okay, now what's the lamp type,
I see. So
and so forth.
it's kind of nice in this way because you don't see everything that you could do right up front. It's kind of like you're guided through this process a little bit. So it doesn't it's not so scary. Like there's so much here, but no, there's just answer a question, and I'll give you a few more
Mhm.
questions here. So
Yeah.
there's some elegance into that.
And I could go to a different one, and okay, that one has the same. Let me try to put, okay, this one would be different. So here, see, my suspension type is
Is
different.
I see
This one was
that
not available before. Now I have different type of finish that are only
right.
associated with this one. So I
I
could
see.
pick here, and everything is really kind of based. Even this layer called armature is not even asked in
Offered,
here.
right,
It's not
right,
even offered.
right, because it took you down a different path, right? So it has different options based on those answers.
Correct. And we obviously keep track of all the work that has been done. So as I jump back to the first line, it knew everything that I answered already. I don't have to start from scratch. So now I can jump here. I can start inputting put some more data just to get to a work
Pick up.
order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just do this.
Well, that's kind of a lot. Is that right? Oh, millimeters, I guess. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's in millimeters. Okay,
So this is
something along those
5
lines.
meters. Okay.
This is was one of the breakthrough for this client was, well, they have over 100 type of colors, and it's been always very difficult to search through the list, right? So I can just scroll and scroll and scroll, or what I can do, I can just start typing this, and
Mm-hmm.
also the quantity. So I need 61 total, but let's say I just
Oh, I
want
see.
20. I do
Gotcha.
this, and boom, it knows 41, right? So now I can do some
Gotcha.
red like this, and I only want 10, and I want some clear, clear.
Was this functionality here, like everything right now seems kind of generic. You could see that you could maybe do this, but is this little piece here, it seems like it's very specific to this client's request though.
Yes, and let me try to let me go through another example to explain how it's very specific to this client. Okay. Okay, now, all right. So let's say let me, okay, like let's say like I do this, okay, and this one needs a 13 quantity. Okay, so let me just do again. Let's say blue one. Okay, and maybe another one just for the sake of example. Okay, so what's very specific about this client is they decided to go with each finished goods being 3 attributes, which is the base layer. But the very last set of attributes are what they call aesthetic. Now we are in the aesthetic layer. We don't want to force on each line of your order. You don't necessarily want to always have one because each will be exactly the same for each per se on the order. So the idea was, how can we let the sales team input a quantity of 3, but have the ability to only for the last layer, which is aesthetic, to be different from one each to a different each to a different each.
I
So in
see.
this case, this line has a quantity of 3. So if I look at the sales order, I have 3 quantities, it's all native. And the entire fixture or the entire finished good will be exactly the same, except for the very last attribute, which is aesthetic, because you didn't want to do, okay, quantity one, quantity one, quantity one, and redo this thing 3 times, right? So you only
Right.
do it once. But what we built for them is a mechanism to just explode the quantity here, right? So let's say you have 3, but one is different than the other 2. Well, here I'm saying, okay, this one will be exactly like this. The other 2 might be different. So instead of, here I can do, well, this one is a 10,000 millimeter. And instead of blue 1, I want blue 2, and I want red 2 instead, right? And maybe like one clear. So everything else is the same for all 3 quantities, except the last attribute for aesthetic that would be different per each.
Okay. Yeah. I don't quite get the numbering. Like here, the aesthetic for this is a pendant color.
Correct. Yes.
And so here I've asked for how many pendants?
So each one quantity of that fixture
Has
carries 13
got it,
pendants.
got it, got it. So we asked
Okay.
for 3 fixtures, and now I
Correct.
need to make 3 different types of coloring combinations, basically.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Got it.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. This makes sense to me. Yeah, I like that. So you exploded this into 3 kind of like sub units, right? So
Correct. Well, in
okay,
this case, 2, but because let's imagine 2 fixtures are exactly the same with the same color combination, but one
I
might
see.
be different. Well,
Oh, I
I can
see.
just play with the aesthetic on one of them, right?
I see. Okay, I got it.
Okay, and let me just try to submit this. So when you're complete, you can submit. This is where, okay, we'll create the response. We'll do all the lookups to the inventory database to match each component or each attribute if they were supposed to return a component or not. If they were supposed to return a component, what's the component? What's the quantity factor? Put it all into our little record, generate a work order with all the components and quantity on it, retrieve
Mhm.
pricing, calculate total price, and
Right.
compute price per each because this is a 3 quantity, and then
Right.
send that price back to the sales order at a rate per each. Okay, and
Right.
that all happened in what, 20 seconds. So now
Right.
let me just refresh my little sales order. What I'll have here is a work order. Okay, so here I have my work order, and I have a pretty decent list of over, I don't know, 50 something items retrieved on the work order with the quantity factor that we told it. Each, like I said, each component they carry a price, what the price is per each time the quantity. At the top of the work order, we calculate the total for the work order divided by the quantity, which is this. Price gets updated to the pro forma to the seller right here. So, that whole flow of, well, CPQ, component lookup, here's my work order, based on that data, update the sales order, and it's ready for review by the accounting team, for example.
I see. So really, there's a team that's building these. That's just saying, okay, I'm building up these price quotes, but they're not really using the tool to see pricing or do any work like that. That it's just basically there to configure it, and then you look at pricing of the sales order or whatever.
You basically maintain price at the component level. So in their case, the price is based on components. So if you keep matching your components and they're related price to each of those components, when you run this, it will just look up that
Aggregate.
price. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's very good.
We hope you found these insights helpful. If you're ready to get more out of your NetSuite investment and unlock untapped potential in your business, start your journey with Prolecto. Contact us today.